Demon Dust is a game that on its surface is just another weird indie game. It advertises itself as a survival horror dungeon crawler, but with a unique control scheme that honestly feels straight out of the original System Shock. If you see its gameplay, you probably expect it to be yet another procedurally generated pandering slopfest with some crunchy PS1 aesthetic horror paint on it and call it a day. That's what I expected when I saw it, and that's what I expected when I bought it on a whim, because even if it were those things, I can't be upset if it gives me just even a few hours of fun. But Demon Dust isn't those things. It's one of the most surprising, incredible little gaming packages I've got in a long time. Demon Dust is a game that couldn't exist without the explosion of the analog horror genre, but never does it ever rely on any of those tropes. Demon Dust is a game that couldn't exist without the seemingly never-ending surge of PS1 horror revivals, but never does it ever default to basically a single one of those tropes, and Demon Dust is a game that couldn't exist without the liminal horror boon that has taken place in the past few years. But never does it ever occupy that space longer than it needs to. Demon Dust is my favorite game this year so far. Now you may look at this game and say, what the fuck is this? Well, for a game that is as relatively short as it is, only taking about 5 to 6 hours to beat, it's honestly a lot of things. It is a survival horror dungeon crawler for one, but what exactly does that mean? Well, when you start, you almost immediately get the feeling that you'll be exploring a labyrinth, fighting enemies and getting keys to unlock doors, maybe solving some puzzles and navigating a dungeon. But Demon Dust, from its very core, is an off-kilter experience. Its controls are incredibly unconventional, as mouse look doesn't indicate what direction you're facing, but instead exclusively acts as your interactivity. You not only aim your pistol with your mouse look, but you interact with your inventory as well as everything in your immediate vision with your cursor. This means that you can collect dust, which is this game's currency, from across a hallway. Every single thing in this game is built around this old school mouse function. Reloading your gun spills the bullets onto the screen, and you must click them individually to reload your weapon. You replenish your health with pills in the same way. It will be awkward at first, but after a very brief amount of time with coming to grips with its systems, it becomes second nature to the point where I found hopping back to a game with more conventional controls to be a weird and disorienting experience. Most of Demon Dust is just a labyrinthian dungeon crawl, but you quickly realize that it's not a game about pushing forward until the next elevator to a lower level, but instead, it is essentially a non-procedurally generated survival horror blueprints. I felt many tendrils of connections between the two games throughout my time with Demon Dust. The entire dungeon, all of its levels, are a giant puzzle box. And not only that, it's one that requires genuine understanding of the placement of its items, certain puzzles, how rooms interlink with each other, and it won't be long before you're mapping out strategies of how to get back to a specific room to use information that you've acquired in order to progress. You'll find items or bizarre things in the world, items that seemingly do nothing or make no sense at all upon their initial use of them. Sequences of numbers that at first you won't know what to do with, but within a few more runs you'll come back to these things with a whole new perspective and not only feel smart about your ability to connect these concepts and puzzles together in your head, but now you get to feel that way every time you come back to it on another run. You get the satisfaction of speedrunning that you get on a second playthrough of an old Resident Evil game, but with Demon Dust it comes in perpetual waves. First, lapping at your feet, then your ankles, and then before you know it, you're swallowed by an ocean of satisfaction. The entire map is not very big at all, but the process of navigating between floors and even sometimes connecting rooms is a fight between life and death, making the map feel gargantuan in the best way possible. And despite each run of the game being locked to the same map each and every time, it does a fantastic job of sprinkling elements of puzzles and secrets that make each run just that much easier, that much more satisfying. And the dungeon itself quickly becomes a character as Demon Dust relishes in the PS1 crunchy aesthetics, but leans heavily into the atmosphere of the bizarre PS1 Japanese classic LSD. Repeating patterns of chaotic texture packs paint the walls and floors, alluding to a certain texture that you think that you understand. Traversing through the hallways of Demon Dust truly feels like an entire game was made out of the famous labyrinth from Silent Hill 2, which happens to be my favorite level from that game. So despite the bizarre horrors that you find within Demon Dust, I can't lie and say that it wasn't a warm hug of coziness from a horror game that I haven't felt in a long time. I would sometimes just stand still and listen to the, at times, barely audible diegetic music playing through the game speakers inside of the hallways. Haunting and as serene as they were, I wanted so badly to be there myself, dancing along with their arrhythmic melodies and haunting ambience, while the skittering of enemies off in the distance sent chills down my spine, or the rotating hum of an unlocked teleporter buzzed with possibilities. Demon Dust knows how to satiate my very specific love for survival horror in both the mechanical and the esoteric. It is all at once something new, but something so very familiar. The game hides a story beneath its symbolic visuals, its crunchy PS1 aesthetic, and its hidden secrets allude to something broader at play. Demon Dust relishes in its ambiguity and asks you to look as deep as you can within the sliver of light that is given to you. Try as you might, there is something that is missing, but you know that it is there, somewhere. Demon Dust is a game that I will remember for a long time. It spoke to me on a fundamental level that very few games, let alone horror games, have spoken to me in recent memory. It reminded me why I love horror games, why survival horror, when done right, will always be my favorite genre, and it reminded me that innovation within the genre is still possible while still retaining its old school sensibilities. Demon Dust is not the best game that I've played this year so far, and it almost assuredly won't be the best game that I played this year, but I'd be hard-pressed to say that any, if many, will resonate with me quite as much as this one has. Buy Demon Dust. For the love of God, buy Demon Dust.
Tomato is a fruit, but it's also a vegetable.